Beowulf, A New Telling by Robert Nye. Chapter 9. Into the Fen. The fen was wild and waste. It stretched as far as the eye could see. The sky over it was gray. The sun was bleak and sere. It was a dead land. Beowulf rode on one of the horses Hrothgar had given him. It was white with a black mane. He picked his way slowly, following the spoor. His men followed him. He had never before been in so desolate a place. The wind was thin and moaning in the reeds. Birds did not sing. Even the light had a brief look about it, as though it were a trespasser. Beowulf wore a blue cloak and the golden collar Queen Wealhtheow had given him. On his head was the helmet that would not break. At his side, the sword as sharp as a flame. However, he did not put his trust in these. He knew that for Grendel's mother, as for Grendel, more subtle and essential weapons were necessary. Beowulf's best weapon was himself. He put all his faith in that. Wealhtheow had not begged him not to go. She knew he must. Hrothgar had wanted to come too. He was so incensed by the wanton slaying of Aesir. But Beowulf told him to stay in Heorot. A king's place is with his people. Besides, if I fail, as I might against such a she-devil, who would there be to protect this land of Danes? He had promised Hrothgar that he would not sleep until he had found Grendel's mother and rid Hall Heorot of the threat of her. Wealhtheow's last words had been, "Take care. She was the wife of Cain. She is 10 times more terrible than her son." It was the smell of the fen, once he was out in it, that surprised Beowulf most. There were dry bones everywhere amongst the marsh grasses, and the pools stank of centuries of decay. Yet this was not sufficient to account for the stench hanging over the miles and miles of desolation. It seemed to break from scummy bubbles lanced by the sun, and drift downwind, getting thicker. It made Beowulf cough. His horse shook its head. The golden bridle jingled. At last, the spoor came to an end. Beowulf drew rein. He stood beside a black rock that overhung the waters of a pool. The pool had dark veins of blood in it. There was a twisted tree on the rock. Dangling from the only branch that grew on the tree was a gory head. It was Unferth's. The eyes did not look sideways as they often had in life. Beowulf spoke to his men. "Bury Unferth's head," he said. He was a person to be pitied. Some of the Geats wanted to argue. They hated the dead Danes so much. But when they saw their leader stripping off his blue cloak and obviously preparing to dive into the pool, they had no heart to question his commands. Beowulf stared at the water. The blood was boiling in it, hissing like snakes. He guessed this must be Grendel's blood. The monster had plunged bleeding into the pool and drowned. And Unferth's head, as well as the spoor, told him that Grendel's mother was down there too. He rubbed at the ring on his finger. He said, "Wait here for me for 2 days and 2 nights. If I do not come back to you before that time is past, then I shall be dead and lost forever, and do not risk your lives in coming to look for me." His men promised that they would do as he said. None of them thought he would ever see Beowulf again. Their faces were strained and fearful, but Beowulf laughed before plunging headlong into the pool.